Hello, I'm Lina Ahmoudou in for Esther Gitui-Ewart, who is on vacation. Welcome to Africa 54. Here is what's coming up. South Africa's Cyril Ramaphosa is sworn in for a second term as president amid a governing coalition deal. As America commemorates the end of slavery on Wednesday's Juneteenth federal holiday, we'll highlight the story of a community started by a freed slave that thrives since 1833. And a Nairobi-based equity group achieves a significant milestone by leveraging technology for customer outreach. All this and much more on today's Africa 54. We begin our broadcast in South Africa, where on Wednesday, Cyril Ramaphosa took the oath of office for a second full term as president in Pretoria. His swearing-in comes after his weekend African National Congress agreed to government coalition deal. Chief Justice Raymond Zondo presided over Ramaphosa's ceremony before lawmakers, foreign dignitaries, religious and traditional leaders, and cheering supporters at the Union Buildings, the seat of government. Tusokumalo has more from Pretoria.
South Africa's ruling African National Congress leader Cyril Ramaphosa was sworn in at a colorful ceremony held at the government's Union Buildings in Pretoria. Thousands attended the gathering, including heads of state and representatives of governments from across the world. Ramaphosa will lead a government of national unity following an election that produced no outright winner. Many South Africans have high expectations from the new president and his government.
I'm really happy to see our president Ramaphosa, and I think today we're going to celebrate and many things can change.
I think after 30 years into democracy, it was a good time to at least give it a chance to see if it works out probably better to redress all the things that didn't go well maybe in the past, and redress all the imbalances that we still have faced today, right?
But others do not think the unit government made up of the African National Congress, the Democratic Alliance, the Inkatha Freedom Party, the Patriotic Alliance, and a few smaller parties will last for a long time.
My feeling is between somewhere the way there, because something new to us, especially on the national level. We are only used to it on the municipal level, of which they are fighting on that side. So we are expecting the same thing even on the national level.
However, in his speech, Ramaphosa assured the nation and the international community that he and the coalition partners will do all in their power to ensure a stable and prosperous South Africa. Tusokumalo for VOA News in Pretoria.
The Scalabrini Center is a Cape Town, South Africa-based nonprofit that is joining forces with lawyers for human rights to stop the deportation of asylum seekers from the country. It says the practice undermines the fundamental principles of both domestic and international refugee law. Vicky Strauch has our report.
The Scalabrini Center helps about 12,000 people on the move each year with paralegal advice and assistance. It says the court case filed before the High Court on May the 24th against the arrest and deportation of asylum seekers should reconvene in August. Asylum seekers face interviews at refugee reception offices in South Africa and are asked to present asylum transit visas. If they don't have one, they must present proof of a good cause for being in the country without one. The Scalabrini Center and Lawyers for Human Rights are seeking to have the immigration good cause interviews, introduced in November last year and resulting in arrests, declared unconstitutional.
The fact that a lot of people either don't come through direct official channels or are not issued with such transit visas. A lot of people fall into the good cause interviews and were not found to have good cause.
Chapman believes this denial of access to the actual asylum process is part of a wider clampdown on foreigners living in the country. To this end, the Cabinet passed the White Paper on Citizenship, Immigration and Refugee Protection shortly before the May general elections. But new draft legislation based on the White Paper is yet to be published for public comment. At a media briefing, South Africa's Home Affairs Minister Aaron Motsoaledi defended the paper, saying South Africa lacked the resources to take everybody in.
To compromise those with genuine claims, which is an enormous number of people, maybe as much as 50% of applicants with genuine cases, and to return them to torture, to war-torn situation, with respect to just an untenable situation.
Pascal Avenvuka was very young when she fled the DRC with her parents. They were helped by the Scalabrini Center, which has been in operation since 2002. Today, she works at the center, coordinating various support groups to help women earn a living.
The reality on the ground, that's what traumatizes the people. So they leave a situation to go for a better one. And then when they get here, they realize it's not necessarily better. You know, South Africa has its own struggle.
She says this is why the support offered by places like the Scalabrini Center is important. Pascal says she's proud to work here and be a part of helping people to integrate and feel at home in South Africa. Vicky Stark, VOA News, Cape Town.
The Hajj observance in Saudi Arabia is ending Wednesday as hundreds of people have died during this year's pilgrimage amid intense high temperatures at Islamic holy sites in the Desert Kingdom. Saudi officials have not yet commented on the death toll during the pilgrimage, which is required of every able Muslim once in their life. Hundreds of people lined up Wednesday at the emergency complex in Mecca trying to get information about their missing family members. One list circulating online suggested that over 500 people died during the Hajj. The list offered no cause of death. Deaths aren't uncommon at the Hajj, which has drawn at times over 2 million people to Saudi Arabia. There have been stampedes and epidemics through the pilgrimage's history. Temperatures on Tuesday reached 47 degrees Celsius or 117 degrees Fahrenheit in Mecca, according to the Saudi National Center for Meteorology. Nigeria is grappling with the worst cost of living crisis in decades, with 31 million Nigerians projected by the United Nations to face acute hunger this year. A Lagos food bank is partnering with farmers to collect surplus produce. Their aim is to ensure that it ends up on the table of families instead of going to waste. Timothy Obiuzu reports from Lagos.
It's harvest day for local farmer Johnny Darlington, and volunteers from the Lagos Food Bank Initiative are here to purchase produce he might not be able to sell. It's all part of a program started by the food bank last year to curb farmers' losses and direct otherwise wasted food to hungry people.
The road is bad, and before we get our goods out, some go bad. The distance to the market as well. For instance, where I am now, I will go down to Lagos, passing through Ifo Road. It's very, very terrible. So imagine having to wait or break down.
Experts estimate that 40% of all food produced in Nigeria is lost, wasted, or spoiled. Poor road infrastructure, the high cost of transportation, and improper storage facilities for rural farmers are to blame. That's where the Lagos Food Bank comes in. From the farm, the produce is taken to a storage facility where It's cleaned, sorted, and prepared for distribution. This week, hundreds of vulnerable people in this Lagos slum benefited from the initiative's free meals, or what they call the Box of Hope.
I feel happy. I feel very happy. I appreciate what you have done for us. I can't describe how I feel unless you get into my heart. You people who have done this don't want us to beg for food.
God will continue to help them so that they'll keep coming. I pray this won't be their last.
This intervention is timely. Nigeria is struggling with its worst cost of living crisis in decades, exacerbated by unpopular government reforms, including the scrapping of the petrol subsidy. The United Nations estimates 31 million people will be food insecure between June and September this year, the so-called lean season. Michael Sunbola is the executive director of the Lagos Food Bank.
There's a lot of food gap in our society, and the fact that at least more than 63.3% of our population are multidimensionally poor, and the fact that a whole lot of people still struggle to find meet their daily needs and also fend for themselves and and feed. And we have to come up with very creative ways to solve some of these pressing problems.
Sunbola says the group has served more than 2 million people in 170 communities so far. Last week, President Bola Tinubu said he was aware of the challenges triggered by his reforms, but said the reforms will create a better economic future for Nigerians. Initiatives like the Lagos Food Bank aim to help millions of vulnerable people keep from going hungry until that future arrives. Timothy Obiezu, VOA News, Lagos, Nigeria.
A Chadian official says 9 people were killed on Wednesday and dozens more were injured when a fire triggered explosions at a military ammunition depot in N'Djamena. The government spokesperson says 46 people are being treated for various injuries after the explosions in the capital. Local media reported the blast started just before midnight Tuesday local time and lasted more than 30 minutes as nearby buildings shook and ammunition with the American Civil War. In this U.S. presidential campaign, candidates Democrat Joe Biden and Republican Donald Trump are both reaching out to black voters around Juneteenth. VOA correspondent Scott Stearns has our story.
President Joe Biden hosted an early Juneteenth concert at the White House.
Our history is not just about the past, it's about our present and our future. It's whether that future is the future for all of us, not just for some of us.
Biden said his political opponents are trying to rewrite history.
They're old ghosts in new garments trying to take us back. Well, there are. Taking away your freedoms, making it harder for black people to vote or have your vote counted. Closing doors of opportunity, attacking the values of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Donald Trump's campaign launched a Black Americans for Trump coalition Saturday, with the former president reaching out to black voters at a Michigan church.
It's a very important area for us. We've done more for, and I say this, I say it proudly, more for the black population than any president since Abraham Lincoln. That's a big statement.
He said black voters are losing jobs to what he called millions of illegal aliens.
No longer every state is a border state. You've heard that. But they're coming into your community and they're taking your job. They're affecting the African Americans and then after that the Hispanic Americans more than any other group.
Trump said black communities are hurt by worsening crime under Biden.
The crime is most rampant right here and in African American communities. And more people see me and they say, sir, we want protection. We want police to protect us. We don't want to get robbed and mugged and beat up or killed because we want to walk across the street to buy a loaf of bread.
FBI data shows violent crime in the United States is down across the country in both large cities and small. Biden says black voters got him elected 4 years ago, and he needs their help again.
Because black Americans voted, Kamala and I are President and Vice President of the United States because of you. That's not hyperbole. Because you voted, Donald Trump has defeated former president. And with your vote in 2024, we're going to make Donald Trump a loser again.
4 years ago, just 8% of black voters chose Trump. Pew Research polling in this campaign shows 18% of black voters backing Trump, a jump that could make a difference in close races in swing states, including Michigan. Scott Stearns, VOA News.
As we've mentioned, Juneteenth commemorates the end of slavery in the United States 2 days after the Civil War concluded. After first receiving their freedom by federal proclamation, many formerly enslaved African Americans would go on to create their own communities across the southern United States. VOA's Phil Alexiou went to one such community, Gum Springs, for a look into how the town is still honoring enslaved who first created it in 1833.
The intersection of Sherwood Hall Lane and Fordson Road is the center of a 214-acre community in the U.S. state of Virginia, known as Gum Springs. It is the oldest African-American community in Fairfax County and one of the oldest in the nation.
My family originated here out of Gum Springs from 1845 to present day. I still live here in Gum Springs, and there are other relatives that are here as well.
Ronald Chase is the founding director of the Gum Springs Museum, and he's been running this place for more than 30 years.
Well, Gum Springs originally was an African-American community started by a gentleman by the name of Wes Ford. And Wes Ford was rumored to be the son of George Washington by an enslaved individual.
At the age of 21, Ford received his freedom from slavery. He then inherited land by George Washington's sister-in-law. He sold that and bought Gum Springs in 1833. And by the beginning of the Civil War, there were 13 families living here.
Runaway slaves came here to Gum Springs. Freedmen came here to Gum Springs. People who had never been enslaved came to Gum Springs. People like Sam Taylor, who came here in 1863, right at the same time that Wes Ford was passing, and started the Bethlehem Baptist Church. And he had formed a group of men called the Joint Stock Club. And these gentlemen, they pooled their pennies, their money, and they went and they bought property here in Gum Springs from the Ford family, and they resold it at cost. They were not about trying to build or make a profit. They were about trying to build a community. They had institutions like all the fraternal organizations, the Masons, the Odd Fellows, the Elks. They had one called the Friendlies. And those organizations, their charge is to assist their fellow man. And that's what they did.
Chase is also the president of the Gum Springs Historical Society, and even though the community is well developed now, he wants to make sure its history is preserved with hopes of designating the area a historic overlay district.
I'm looking at the tombstones of Miss Annie or Mrs. Annie Smith. The slaves would identify their graves. Charles Drew, he actually did something that changed the world, literally. He was the research doctor that perfected the means by which to store blood plasma, that modernized the ability to do blood transfusions.
Chase says Gum Springs thrived from the very beginning.
It became that classic case, that classic sense of what eventually became known as Americana. Many African-American communities have seen their demise, but yet Gum Springs is still here.
Philip Alexiou, VOA News, Fairfax, Virginia.
Still to come, we'll tell you how a Kenyan bank is leveraging technology to reach more customers. Stay with us.
On the next Straight Talk Africa, forced displacement surged to unprecedented levels worldwide in the last 2 years. 30 million of those displaced live on the continent. Some spend their life in the refugee camps. Others manage to find their way to a host country and often become agents of change. Join me, Vincent Makori, for an in-depth look into the plight of refugees on the next Straight Talk Africa.
In other news, hundreds of protesters are being detained in Nairobi over protests against proposed tax hike in a finance bill that is due to be tabled in Parliament. Some major tax proposals in the bill were dropped after a meeting between ruling party lawmakers and Kenyan President William Ruto. As we've mentioned, the Juneteenth, a federal holiday, commemorates the day in 1865 when the last enslaved people in the United States learned they were free. For generations, Black Americans have recognized Juneteenth with joy in the form of parades, street festivals, musical performances, or cookouts. And frustrations boiled over at UN Security Council meeting Tuesday as Sudan's ambassador accused the United Arab Emirates of providing arms and other support to the paramilitary rapid support forces fueling a brutal war in Sudan. The Emirati ambassador calls the claim, quote, ludicrous. The Kenya-based Equity Group Bank, headquartered in Nairobi, is the largest bank in East and Central Africa. It is leveraging technology to serve its more than 20 million customers. The company focuses on governance, inclusivity, technology, and partnerships. It is also highlighting the importance of digital inclusion and artificial intelligence in decision-making. VOA's Paul Ndiho spoke to James Mwangi, the CEO and Managing Director of Equity Group Holdings, who shared his insight.
Technology is very big for Equity Group because, as we said, we needed to adopt a high-volume, low-margin model. And you can only do that by moving away from brick-and-mortar, fixed-cost structures to variable cost structures and being online, such that customers reach you through clicks on their devices. And that helps to break the barriers of geography and time. You compress both, and you're able to offer banking 24 hours wherever the customer is. Now, to be able to do that, we needed to invest heavily on fourth industrial technologies. And broadly, that requires massive investment. Today, we signed an agreement with HP to provide us with infrastructural capability, both for processing and storage, up to $200 million, up to 2030. So that is the level of innovations. Today, we also unveiled a partnership with Microsoft and MasterCard Corporation. And if you look at there, the issue is rollout at solution for small-scale farmers.
How have you been able to scale where others have failed?
We have scaled because of commitment. As an African banking group, we felt we have to provide solutions to the excluded in the financial sectors. We build a purpose that centers on changing lives, giving dignity and expanding opportunities. When you talk about expanding opportunities in the African continent, your target should be the 1.3 billion people. So even at 20%, at 20 million, we are still tiny to the aspiration and objective of being providing a solution. And we use technology extensively. 98% of all our transactions are now on digital platforms, and that has really made it scalable. And that speaks to the point where today we were with Microsoft, we were with HP, because we need to leapfrog on technology. We need to be globally competitive. We need to be efficient. And so if we could be the first adopters for the industrial technology, because we have no legacy systems, then we can be globally competitive.
Since you focus a lot more on technology, how about the issue of AI? Everybody is talking about how AI can revolutionize that industry, the banking industry, how AI can either create jobs or take away jobs. How do you see AI playing a role in the banking sector?
We start with the digitization. The most important thing is digital inclusion, because AI is layered on top of digitized systems. Then we use machine learning to collect and gather all the data. And with that data lakes that we build from all these digital systems, then we start studying the behavior of people, the needs of the people. So we do deep analysis, then feed artificial intelligence in decision making. The insights that will be built from analysis of big data will help them to create generative AI, which is central then to decision making. I don't really believe that AI will replace jobs. What it will do is that it will create jobs of the future. It's a tool of enablement. It's like what people feared, that computers will kill jobs. Computers only increased jobs and change the quality of the jobs that we were doing, from manual jobs to intellectual jobs. Again, AI takes that to the next level of using human intelligence to develop solutions that AI can provide the insights. Success is how many lives are changed in the African continent, how many people are able to live dignified lives, and that is by expanding opportunities for them. So for me, success is expanded opportunity for the people. They can feed their families, they can provide for their children, they can afford health. That is what success looks like. Banking is just a tool of achieving that greater objective.
How many markets are you in?
We're in 7 markets. We're in DRC, we're in Uganda, we're in Rwanda, we're in Tanzania, we're in South Sudan, we're in Kenya, and Ethiopia. And broadly, we're a systemic bank in all the markets. We're either between number 1 and number 4.
Dr. Mwangi, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
A pleasure talking to you, sir.
Thank you.
That was James Mwangi, the CEO and manager